I finished reading VALIS by Philip K. Dick. I started this book back in December 2012, and I got about 70 pages in, and while I thought it was really interesting, a lot of it went over my head the first time, but now I read it, and I really liked it. The book is really bleak, but also adventurous. You really feel like this book is melting reality around you as you read. This book is about many things, from Gnosticism to the supposed causes of the resignation of Richard Nixon in 1974. But since I don't have time to talk about everything, I'll focus on just a few things about VALIS that make it special to me. First, generally, it's about the visionary experiences that Philip K. Dick had in 1974. I can't describe everything about this here. PKD himself wrote about 8,000 pages of notes about it and what he called his exegesis. But basically, through his visions, he effected real-world life and death consequences. Because of the information he gathered in one vision, he correctly diagnosed a very complex intestinal problem that his son was suffering from, a problem that his doctors couldn't catch. After PKD's diagnosis, his son was operated on and was able to live. This diagnosis involved medical knowledge that PKD should not have been able to know. PKD himself credits these visions for this knowledge. Next, the book is about mental illness, its attributes, the personal experience PKD had with it, its treatment, etc. PKD's view of his own mental problems and their treatment is all very sardonic, to the point that the plot of the book feels like a big joke. In the book, he calls himself Horse Lover Fat, which is a literal etymological translation of his real name. But he also throws in the first person I, and many times throughout the book, I and Horse Lover Fat talk to each other as completely separate entities. PKD even talks about this dissociated split identity in the book, and how it was a psychological reaction to the pain he felt about his wife leaving him and his friend Gloria committing suicide. But it's not even just this. In the book, the various other characters also take on identities that are very similar to PKD. For instance, at the end of chapter 4, the person who's in charge of the ward PKD is in at the hospital, the mental hospital, Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone can suddenly speak to PKD very confidently about the exact recondite information PKD is mulling over in his head. It becomes apparent that Dr. Stone is just a projection of PKD. This isn't something rare in literature, because obviously in some sense, all characters of all novels are just projections of the author in one way or another. But I think the sardonic way that PKD doesn't choose to hide this projection is insightful. I feel as though this lack of mystery about it relates back to mental illness and its treatment. When people talk about things like, pink beams hitting them with complex life-saving information, it's extremely hard to listen to them without feeling some kind of pity for their state of mind. This book is here for PKD to be able to talk about his experiences without being stamped immediately as a lunatic who needs meds. PKD referred a lot to the bleak context in which he was in, and it's apparent that this was definitely no such context that could allow him to speak about these visions he experienced. This lack of an outlet meant that he needed to make his own outlet, i.e., in writings such as VALIS and his exegesis. This book, in one sense, is PKD's method of finding a way to integrate the vision or visions he experienced into his understanding of the universe/reality. The excerpts of his own exegesis making its way into the novel all the time as bolded text is a definite symbol for this integration. I think the question this novel can pose for us is this: What happens when you experience something that makes no sense to you or anyone around you, but the fact remains that you experienced it? It is, of course, very easy to dismiss these experiences as just mental lapses. But what if sweeping it under the rug like that isn't enough, or is even a misguided solution? I really loved the redemptive message of the book at the end, which is one of, you have to do what you're here to do. PKD calls this his commission and knows nothing else about it except that he has to do it. This harks back to a quote I recently read in an essay by Yvonne Franz that is included in Jung's book Man and His Symbols, which says, "Man's main purpose is not to eat, drink, etc., but to be human." The fact that Horse Lover Fat is now seen nicely dressed in professional attire at the end of the book is a symbol of this invigorating message, giving life to the bleakness all around.